Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Well, hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Wednesday. It is April the 23rd. I'm going to get my phone right out into the Faraday bag because I've already gotten calls today. Folks, welcome to the program. We're going to get started right away with a lot of information, a ton of stuff to cover today, including the unfortunate hypocrisy that continues on. If you did not catch the plan for how to fix things, I covered it yesterday. So when I'm talking here, we're not going to just do a show where we just sit here and punch on the guys that are trying to run the FBI and not getting done the things that we need. But we are going to throw a couple of punches just for reality's sake. We're also going to talk a little bit about the Pope, who he was, what's going on next. I think that's interesting as a world faith leader that is worth our coverage. We're also going to talk about a Supreme Court case that should affect those of you that have your kids in government schools. It's coming out of, Maryland? Montgomery County, which is right outside the gates of that Washington, D.C. It's a lot of lefties that live there, and there are even some parents in Maryland, which is kind of a commie place. We're kind of finding out. They've got their senator flying down to El Salvador to go argue on behalf of people who are not citizens while ignoring citizens. Another situation developing there as far as like the hypocrisy from the elected leaders. So we'll talk about that. Also, my favorite piece of analysis is when you decide that the analysis is everything is awesome, but also everything is terrible. And so CNN analysis, I'm going to kind of cover that. I haven't done a CNN main piece in quite a while, and they make me kind of laugh a little bit. Got a little bit of fun as well. So we're just going to have a full-on regular Kyle Seraphin show without just like one focus that I sit and scream at. And in that spirit, we'll go to our oldest and our longest running sponsor, our favorite folks over at Patriot Coolers. If you guys want to get your own Patriot Cooler, there's always one sitting on my desk. If you watched as you zoomed in here, if you're just listening, you can't see it, but there's always a Patriot Cooler on my desk. There's almost always one sitting next to me when I do an interview. You can find them at patriotcoolers.com. That's Patriot Coolers with an S on the end.com. Use my promo code KYLE. It'll save you 10%. It'll let them know that we sent you. Yes, it's the same discount you'd get if you were a military service member. They extend it to our audience as well, so we appreciate that. And they make a great product. I don't hawk things that I won't buy myself. And I have bought a bunch of these. I give them as my own gifts whenever it's time to give them out. We hand them off to neighbors as housewarming gifts and so on. Check out Patriot Coolers. If you want one that is engraved with a custom laser engraving that they do in-house, there's the one on the wall right there. I wonder if I lean back. There, you can see it. It's got the Suspendables logos. You guys can find that in the Kyle Seraphin Show collection, which is really the Garrett O'Boyle collection, if we're being honest. PatriotCoolers.com, promo code KYLE. Check them out. Support them, show them a little bit of love, and we really appreciate their sponsorship. Let's get into it today, shall we? All right, so if you guys remember, before all of this FBI nonsense, before we started getting really upset about the fact that it looks like it's not getting done, we were talking about the economy, we were talking about tariffs, we were talking about the stock market tanking. And so we're going to lead off with the financial excitement and the way that stocks are behaving now that Donald Trump has removed a little bit of the ambiguity regarding Jerome Powell. This is an article written by two folks over at CNN. Trump warned of financial turmoil if he fired Powell, and now his U-turn has stocks roaring higher. The market doesn't like uncertainty. The market, I always say, is kind of like a casino. I'm not a stock market guy, although I have money in the stock market like many of you in my retirement accounts. And I always watch it, and you can always see, if you just have a little bit of patience, it inevitably climbs higher because the dollar is worth less. So as inflation goes, you also see stocks climb. Generally speaking, we see the stock market climb at a higher rate than inflation, we hope. So there's a good place to put it. But you're basically watching your money get devalued at the same time as your stocks are higher valued. So all those kind of gains, those unrealized gains, are never real. Anyhow, what it really doesn't like in the short term is uncertainty. If you zoom in on any line of stock market performance of any individual stock, almost, you'll see this jagged performance movement. It's how people get excited, right? It's how people get disappointed or scared or worried or frustrated or bad news or good news. And all these things move all up and down. And then you turn around and you see that if you zoom further out, like the line gets flatter and flatter, like all curves do. Curve analysis is always done from a zoomed out position. And the bigger the section of the curve you do analysis on, the more likely it is that you're going to see trend. And the trend is almost always just like upward and upward and upward. Even under Joe Biden, where we had big drops, continued upward. So here you go. President Donald Trump's recent attack on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Again, this is things that people don't like. Uncertainty, because if you have to replace the chairman of the Fed, they don't like that, because it means who's in next and what is their policy. This guy, they sort of know what he's doing. They've seen a track record. It caused alarm among some of his top advisors, who warned him that any attempt to remove the head of the central bank could cause significant market turmoil, especially during his ongoing trade war. I guess he was talked out of it. And so the day after markets boomed, because he said they would seek to de-escalate the trade war with China, and they were going to not replace him. He said, I have no intention of firing the man, and so therefore it's really good. Okay, fine. What that led to is my favorite sort of thing, which is when you get really good analysis where someone takes a hardline position, and this is Stephen Collinson, who I'd actually never heard speak before. Stephen Collinson is British, which how many commentators, I've said this before too, but it really does blow my mind. How many commentators on U.S. media, in print, on television, and so on, talking about U.S. politics are Brits? There's a fair number of them if you go look. A couple of Aussies as well. There's not very many Americans that are commenting on the other side. It's just an interesting thing that I find. Like sometimes you just see these stuff and you go, oh, why is that? This is a real hard line. You're seeing it on the screen right now. If you're listening, this is what it says. How Trump's presidency can be a colossal failure and a stunning success all at once. Talk about riding the fence there, huh? This was their main headline of the day. I don't know why they employ this guy, but it does make me laugh. And he's much fatter in real life when you see him on camera than he is in his little sort of like headshot here. So that's also useful to know. Just kind of an unhealthy, kind of portly British man who's very pompous. By conventional measures, I should do an accent, but I'm not going to. Donald Trump's second presidency is already descending into disarray. Do you remember how the word of the day was chaos not but a week ago? And that was pushed out. The talking point in the leftist media went out pretty aggressively. The talking point was chaos, and that's what we're seeing. It's a legal morass. It's self-inflicted errors. It's a vast gap between ambition and capacity to enact the vision. Those are a lot of words that say almost nothing. Tens of millions of supporters didn't send a conventional president back into the White House, so they do not judge their hero's performance by traditional yardsticks. Yes and no, right? I think the people who would put on the MAGA hat would all like to see movement, and some of the movement we've seen has been faster than government for most of the way we've been moving in a way that we don't see government often move. We've seen some non-status quo moves. We've seen some real status quo moves. We just saw Kristi Noem get robbed. You guys didn't maybe catch this, but Kristi Noem, who famous for awkwardly holding a rifle like it was a snake that might bite her in front of a couple of ICE agents or Border Patrol guys, was apparently at a D.C. restaurant and then robbed, I don't know if at gunpoint or if someone just did a snatch and grab, lost her purse. Luckily, she didn't have her rifle with her, so she couldn't fire off into the ceiling, but also $3,000 in cash, which is an awkward thing to do. Even if you have that kind of money, who runs around with $3,000 in cash? Probably 1% of this audience will walk around with that kind of cash. If you're not a gangster, if you're not regularly doing, I don't know, MS-13 human trafficking, where you're writing things on your bills and, you know, coloring out the faces of the president, you're probably not rolling around with $3,000. It's kind of a weird look. And also, it's kind of a weird look to disclose that. I'm sure it was in the police report, but it just doesn't look good. It doesn't look like people who are in touch when you're out here trying to talk about your base and saying, hey, we're here for you. But also, we just roll around with thousands of dollars in cash in our very expensive purse and our long hair extensions. And our tons she lost makeup, which was probably the most valuable thing. Having seen like her face unadulterated and then seen her face made up, I imagine that the purse snatching from the table and the lost makeup might have been one of the most expensive things lost. Anyway, his Trump supporters do not judge Donald Trump based on traditional performance. I think I said it earlier on in the even before he actually got inaugurated. If Trump did 30% of the things he claimed, we'd be winning. And he's kind of doing that. I think if we're being real honest, like 30% of it is probably in there. They've started identifying some government waste. They put in some decent people. They put in some not so decent people. They put in some people that we hoped were going to be decent, and they're kind of okay-ish. They're not any worse. They're not any better. So, I don't know. I guess we could just say that it's not going to be a colossal failure, and it's not going to be a stunning success, most likely. I don't know. These guys. They're worried about national security. They're worried about another thing. Pete Hegseth back in the news again because of another signal group and getting rid of people. It's just funny that they can't pick a line. They don't really know where they're at. I guess that's why you end up with some of these stories from some of these wackos. Their leftist podcasters still can't get themselves together. This is a podcaster who I listen to, and I thought, you know what? Regardless of what Trump has got going on, regardless of what the political right is doing, at least we don't have ladies like this that are out there speaking on our behalf. I guess there might be some version of this in the MAGA movement, but listen to how nasty this is. They're still fixating on the loss, and they're majoring in the minors. And I don't know. This is a leftist podcaster. I had her name earlier and I forgot it, and it's kind of forgettable, other than she represents all kind of what Steve Friend calls the worst people. I imagine this lady would neuter her child, although she looks like she's out of childbearing age. She would neuter her child just to brag to her buddies at brunch. And she's berating a Democrat politician because they're not strong enough on the issues that are really important to her. We'll get into the Supreme Court thing that's going on, which I think is where I think regular parents and regular people who have common sense are hoping for common sense. That's what they're kind of looking for out of this government. Anyway, at least this lady's not on our team. We don't have to deal with it defending this.
We were really south on kitchen table issues. We weren't really good about the family room issues.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you 100%.
Okay, the only room we were do really well was the bathroom. And that's the smallest room in the house.
That is such bullshit. That is total bullshit. That is buying into the right-wing media narrative. And I'm so sick of Democrats like you selling out and saying this. You know who talks about trans people more than anybody? MAGA. MAGA is the most genital-obsessed political party I have ever seen. Kamala Harris talked about home ownership. She talked about kitchen table issues. Trump's over there droning on about Hannibal Lecter. Are you kidding me? This is where the Democrats lose, because we're playing the game with the rule book. They've ripped the rule book up and are cramming it down everybody's throat. And Democrats are upset because Joe Biden pardoned his son. We got to fucking fight. They're the gender obsessed weirdos, not us. We're the ones who fight for Social Security. We fight for Medicare. And yeah, we're not going to bully trans people. We're not going to fucking do it. Fine.
Listen, what I want to do is I want to invite guests on my program, and then I want to just berate them and lecture them and tell them what I think and how they should think, and that we're really mad at MAGA because they ripped up the rule book. How many times have you guys heard it? If you listen to this program, you kind of know I have this instinct that while the political right continues to play within the rules, that's always the way it works. They go to court, and for the once, we've actually seen a little bit of movement against that, with the Trump administration saying, like, we're the executive and you're the judiciary, so stay in your lane. We've seen a little bit of that, but how many times did the left just rip up the rule book, play by the rules, and then hold everybody else accountable to them, the independent types? Is she living in a complete fantasy world? I suppose she is. And I guess that's why you end up with cases like this. Again, this is Montgomery County, which is very left-leaning. And this is a story that comes from, I think it's also CNN. I think we're going to get all of our CNN up front, but I found it quite interesting. This story is about a pretty important Supreme Court case that should be such a no-brainer that nobody should know. Sorry, this is from ABC. The Supreme Court is leaning towards parents in a dispute over LGBTQ storybooks in school. I've been reading this and kind of watching on the outside to kind of see what it's all about. It is truly shocking what the left is willing to go to court over and why this is even an issue. The Supreme Court, which they refer to as having a conservative majority, we kind of go like, we air quote that. They don't do it, but we do. They signal that they're poised to establish the right of parents to opt out with their children from public school instruction that conflicts with sincerely held religious beliefs. If you took this back 20 years ago, this would never have made it to any court, let alone the Supreme Court. That's how far to the left the wackos are. And that's why when they talk about people being genital obsessed or bathroom obsessed, it's because you're ramming it down on children, you complete like lunatic. That lady even looked crazy. She was wearing an all-white suit. Ugh. The case was brought by a group of Christians, Muslims, and Jewish parents from Montgomery County, Maryland. I'll tell you, I didn't like going to Maryland ever when I was living outside of D.C. It's my least favorite. That's where I went to go find crime and where I went to go find lefties who were like spying on and betraying the U.S. government. That's not an exaggeration. I would never live in Maryland, ever. And that doesn't mean if you live in Maryland, you're a bad person. It just means that you live in a communist state, and you know it. Maryland is the home to Baltimore, which basically looks like Beirut from the 80s. It's full crazy driving through Baltimore in the early mornings, and that's not very far. So that whole state is being held hostage by basically the outskirts of D.C., including Montgomery County. Right next to it is PG County. PG County is trash and awful. My buddy ran a liquor store there, and they were broken into like on a monthly basis. They had regular robberies. He had to testify in a stabbing that happened at their bar. You know, just crazy stuff happening there. And I did a ton of criminal surveillance up there. And right next to Montgomery County, you still could drive into like terrible places like we showed you the other day. That MS-13 guy that got sent down to El Salvador was hanging out in Hyattsville, right? It's hanging out like Langley Park and Chillum and all this kind of stuff. Like all these places have all kinds of trash. Anyway, in that leftist enclave, they actually found some Christians and Muslims and Jewish parents who don't agree about religion, who don't agree about salvation, but they all agree about one thing. It's our kids, and you don't get to indoctrinate them with like tranny madness and LGBTQ same-sex marriage gender exploration storybooks in elementary school of all places. The parents allege that books used in the elementary school curriculum without any opportunity to be excused, in other words, they don't notify the parents before they start putting their kids into this stuff, amounts to government-led indoctrination about sensitive matters of sexuality, and the school boards insist that the books merely expose children to diverse viewpoints and ideas. Well, that's how indoctrination happens, does it not? You're seeing here the people that are protesting outside of the Supreme Court, authors against book bans, just piss right off. You have absolutely no right to put your books in the hands of little kids. And some of these stories that they're talking about are truly crazy. One of them is called The Prince and the Knight. This is like actually the basis of the lawsuit. And it's a story about a prince meeting a knight, and they're both men and they want to get married. For like little tiny kids. You're out of your flippin' minds. Let's see if they actually mentioned the other ones here. There was one about transgender ideology too, where someone discovers that not all boys who have are born with, not all boys have a penis is essentially it. Stuff that you're real simple. And they're actually making like regular, like here's John Roberts, the conservative majority leader, right? He questioned whether elementary school students could realistically be assumed to understand the presentation of the books, which were different than a teacher's endorsement of them. In other words, being put in the school is a tacit endorsement. That's simple stuff. And he said, I understand the idea when you're talking about a sophomore or junior in high school, but I'm not sure that the same qualifying factors apply when you're talking about 5-year-olds. 5-year-olds who are waiting for the tooth fairy, 5-year-olds who are excited about Santa Claus coming, 5-year-olds who don't necessarily understand that a storybook is in fact fantasy. My kids who might read stories about fairies and then go outside and make fairies, castles for them and stuff. Look, childhood is a time of magic and wonder and exploration, and it's really amazing to watch. And if you're a parent, you have no problem with your kids believing in things that are not true. What you don't want is some other a-hole, some gender-confused, obsessed with their own, like narcissistic navel-gazers to come forward and try to tell your kids what is true, what is not, and what is normal, what is not, especially when you're trying to take them to Sunday school, take them to a church, and indoctrinate them in your faith. It's crazy. Neil Gorsuch suggested the board may have exhibited discriminatory hostility towards religion when they reversed course on opt-out. In other words, they used to actually allow opting out, and then they changed their mind on it because you must listen to the gender ideology that the state pushes. This is a big deal. This is, I think, why you listen to the lefties talking about, oh, the MAGA people, they're so obsessed with it. It's like, no. It's just conservative people in general, people on the right who tend to vote for the Republican Party, but oftentimes find ourselves not very well represented there. We think that the First Amendment means that we have a freedom of religion and that the government has no rights. They're essentially arguing here that there's rights of the teachers and of the schools that should in fact trump the rights of parents to raise their children, who is the primary caregiver. And that is a hard leftist position. This is Hillary Clinton talking about how it takes a village, it's Barack Obama, that they're all of our children, and all of the other crazy lefties out there who want to co-opt your children to give them their ideas and think that their ideas triumph over yours when you're the one who feeds them, who clothes them, who wipes their butts. I mean, this is not really that hard. I cannot believe that we are actually having this debate right now, but it just tells you how far we've come. And that's why, again, Donald Trump, who is not a conservative, and it's not a big deal. He's a Democrat from 30 years ago, and we could live in a country run by a Democrat from 30 years ago without lighting our hair on fire. And we did. And nobody lost their minds about it. There was a hard change in this country in about 2008. I think it came from 2001. I think that the failure of George W. Bush and that bringing on of the endless war that happened overseas, where most of the men in my generation had some experience of the global war on terror, we all looked at our government and went like, okay, we believe you. We don't believe you anymore. I'm pretty sure you're lying to us. And then you had this hard change in 2009 where a guy came in offering hope and change. And a lot of regular people went like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We could do that. What they didn't realize is that it was just like hope for insane leftist policies, that he basically was the best way of smuggling in the hardest left ideas, and the country took a turn to the hard left at almost 90 degrees. And now we're having arguments about whether or not parents should be allowed to opt out from gay marriage indoctrination of 5-year-olds. And the Supreme Court is going to have to deal with it. It's full crazy. I'm going to tell you, I think, why I think government indoctrination is so problematic as well. Because the people who work in government at every level, they can't be trusted with our kids because they don't share a diverse viewpoint. They share a collected viewpoint. I found this little clip over from the Daily Signal, which is a Heritage Foundation group. So this is their news end. Okay, so obviously they are obviously on the right. Let's just acknowledge bias where it is. But numbers are numbers, and they're not racist, and they're not sexist, and they're not misogynistic, and they're not political. They can be slanted. But when you look at the way that federal employees vote and state employees vote, when you look at the way that employees of government agencies put their personal cash and what their causes are, they are almost exclusively on the left. And leftists think one thing: God is a problem because government is the thing that gives us all the things that we need. Government has to decide, and we're in the government, and we want to run the government, and we expect to run the government, and the government loves us back. So their God gives them the things they want, like transgender ideology shoved down on little kids. This is why it's such a problem. This is why you have to wrangle, and why personnel equals policy, and government policy, by and large, favors the government. It's why I did the show yesterday about the self-licking ice cream cone. The government has lost, like government at every level, state, federal, local. Almost all of them have lost the thread. That's why we're seeing people stand up at school board meetings and go, hey, how dare you? Like, we were just putting our heads down, trying to do our jobs. We were people that are, running routes in a truck, that are delivering food to people, that are working in stores and restaurants. We're running small businesses. We're giving a product or a service that Americans are willing to trade their hard-earned cash for. And then we looked up and realized that the people that are in these governments at every level, they hate God. They think that your ideas are bad. They are immoral because their morality basically precludes the ability to understand it. Here's the Daily Signal clip talking about where the money is donated. Most people who are on the left are no better off than you are. They don't want to give their money to any causes. For some reason, they're okay with government taking their money because government will also take your money and apply it to causes that you don't want. Like, I don't know, schools that are trying to indoctrinate your kids.
So we started looking at all political donations from the State Department. We looked at them for USAID. And what did we find? For State Department, it was like 94% went to the left. At USAID, it was like 98% that went to the left. National Endowment for Democracy, like 95% to the left. And then we started looking at all of the partners, the international NGOs, the contractors, and started looking at all of them, where the billions and billions are going. And 95, 98%. Even World Vision Catholic Relief Services, the vast majority, well over 90% of the political donations were going to the left. You look at the boards, they're all prominent people making very high salaries. So when you think about what's happened, the left, which was misusing USAID, and they're doing this across the federal government, misusing taxpayer money as a slush fund to finance their own people. Mm-hmm. And these are folks that can go out there, do the media, be the foot soldiers of the left, give money back. And so you had a one-sided uni-party apparatus here funding only one side of the political equation. And thank you, U.S. taxpayer.
It's real simple stuff. I mean, that's really where it comes down to. Like, they're willing to fund their own thing. That's why you have to have a balance in government. And that's why you want smaller government to begin with, because it shouldn't be able to pull your money and put it into things that you have no say in. The Supreme Court going to weigh in on this story. And it sounds like they're favoring parents, which, by the way, the leftists are actually really mad about. They don't really want that. They want it to favor government, as usual. And the reason is because that's what they vote for. That's where their dollars go, and so on. We're going to do a quick read for a sponsor. This is my friends over at My Patriot Supply. I did a discussion with Andy Schechtman on Sunday, the Sunday sit down. If you guys did not check that out, check it out. It's actually relatively short for what we do there. It's just 1 hour. And he's talking about assets. And one of the things that we kind of agree on is that assets are things that you can hold on to and they hold tangible value. And whether that be gold or silver or ammunition or guns, food is one of them because you can use it and you can trade it. And if you want to have your own, one way you can do that is checking out a preparedness option like preparelikekyle.com. That's My Patriot Supply. We'll just ask you, if the grocery stores were to go empty tomorrow, would you be ready? Most of you, if you're prepping, the answer is yes. If you're preparing for bad things, if you want to go to preparelikekyle.com, you're already squared away. We use My Patriot Supply here. We have 2 90-day food kits, which we're talking about. These are the 3-month emergency food kit on hand. This is the one that I keep. Okay. And right now you can get $200 off if you were to go to buy that. It's a huge discount. And it's one of these things that they just don't often offer. They're, you can always buy something, but they rotate through their specials. The food kit gives you 2,000 calories a day per person. So you buy one for each adult. That's the best way to do it. And kids eat smaller. You guys know that. The food tastes great. It lasts for up to 25 years. They actually have a vertical integration where they're making their own food so they can get high quality control. It ships for free and it delivers in as little as 2 days. They've got 3 different warehouses in different time zones to be able to get it to you. Take advantage of this deal. Just go to preparelikekyle.com. This is like your own personal insurance policy, folks. We can't control what goes on in the world. We can control how we prepare for it. So it's getting a $200 discount for the limited time right now is an opportunity to go that. Again, preparelikekyle.com, preparelikekyle.com. It's peace of mind in a box, or in this case, probably many different buckets that you could stack up like I have. I have an entire closet full of food. I recommend doing something like that for yourself just so you have it. Okay. We're going to keep pressing onward, and I want to talk about, let's see, I got a couple of things. Why do we not trust the government? Let's put this up here again. I actually was going to cover this yesterday, and I got sidetracked. The government has lost credibility. In fact, my palate cleanser for you today is a little bit about this. The Trump administration punched out a lab leak origins, talking about the origins of COVID-19 and all of the lies that we've been seeing. Yes, I think the country took a hard left in 2009. I think it took another turn in 2020/2021 when we moved into the you can only listen to the things that we approve. The messages that we share are the only messages that are appropriate. We will not give you access to all of the information. We will tell you what to think and you will obey, or we will take your job. We will take your livelihood. We'll take your ability to go shopping for groceries. This is why preparation is such an important thing. It gives you room. And the lab leak origins that has been released by the White House, I think very important. Here are the main 5 points on it, which are worth covering down on. Okay. This is not stuff that is news to any of us here that have been paying attention. What it is an like a wake-up call to remind us again how big a deal this was. The virus possessed biological characteristics that were not found in nature. That was part 1. All the data showed that COVID-19 cases came from a single introduction into humans, which is a contrary to previous pandemics where they would normally have spillover events. In other words, multiple people would be exposed. You would think that if it was the so-called wet market story, right, that somebody ate a bat or a pangolin or whatever the hell the story was, which was always crazy looking, that multiple people would have been exposed. It wouldn't have been just one bat. There would have been obviously like multiple bats that people eat. And the fact that people eat bats in China is also kind of strange. It has an origin in Wuhan, China, which is also the place where they had the foremost SARS research laboratory. We all know this kind of old stuff. It has a history of conducting gain of function. You guys can dig deeper into this, but essentially, the United States offshored all of its gain of function research, and they did so primarily to this place, and they did so in lower biotech areas than they should have. And then the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is abbreviated WIV, the researchers also got sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019. That was 6 months before we started seeing the United States lockdowns and the concerns. That actually all happened, as far as I can remember, in March of 2020. So it was discovered in the working pool of the folks that were actually at the Virology Institute. And then by nearly all measures of science, there was evidence of natural origin. It should have had to pop up. In other words, if the thing that they were trying to claim should have been easily provable in the amount of time we've had. Anyway, the White House is now going out and basically correcting insanity that we lived through for 4 years. And so much of what we dealt with for the last couple years grew out of that, right? the movement and resistance against government institutions, against vaccines that got shoved down, the people who otherwise would say, yeah, we back the blue and we think law enforcement is great. Those people looking around going, maybe they're not great. Maybe they're willing to lock up a pastor who said that they just wanted to practice their faith. And maybe they're willing to go and arrest a parent who wants to go and complain at a school board meeting that their kid is being indoctrinated with the Prince and the Knight, some gay love story that they don't think children should have to deal with. That doesn't mean you have a problem with gay people. You can or you can't. That's your choice. In America, you're allowed to be bigoted, it turns out. But it doesn't mean that they get a chance to shove it down your kid's throat and you shouldn't be able to opt out. The only way you fix this, and there's been a massive movement since that time of those lies, people have gone, you know what? I'd rather have my kids at home. Government schools are not for me. And so school districts are hemorrhaging students because people are looking around and making the same choice that I did. And my wife did. We said, we're not going to send our 4-year-old or our 5-year-old into a school system where they force them to have a mask on while they play outdoors with other kids. You're out of your flipping minds. We'll just do it at home. And you end up with these scenarios where people just like us, we're going into the doctor's offices and now we don't go to them in general at all because we don't trust what these doctors had to say. My doctor told us in 2021 as we were getting ready to move, said, man, it must be really weird for your kids to see somebody having not seen anybody in the last year and a half. And we're like, what the hell are you talking about? My kids played with the neighborhood kids every day because we were regular people. And so many regular people made that same decision. So it's worth remembering this stuff. All right. We cannot operate in the vacuum. And the fact that government is problematic across the board. Here's a little taste of it. Government doesn't do a great job at almost anything. I always tell you guys that it's my position. It's my personal opinion that government is the worst solution to the problem, even when it's the only solution to the problem. I found 2 stories that would seem otherwise unrelated, and we're going to get into some FBI stuff in a second here, and we'll talk about the Pope in a minute as well. The Pope represents sort of the non-governmental authority that also was 100% in line, it turns out, with what our leftists in the government have to say. These 2 stories I found to be very related. And you guys will find that our Sunday sit-down coming up on this coming weekend, we talk about gold again. It was a guest that was referred to me by Andy Schectman, of all people, and we're going to cover down on gold IRAs and the scam that they are. And if you have any interest in getting into a gold IRA, if you've been listening to other podcasts where they are constantly hammering them, if you listen to Fox News and they're hitting you for gold IRAs, you better bookmark our show for Sunday. We've already told you that they're a scam. The mechanics of the scam is actually slightly worse than I knew. I knew they were a scam when I was offered sponsorships. I knew they were more of a scam when Andy Schectman told me what he believes was going on with the coinage and the fact that they were selling it. And we have a guy who's a whistleblower coming on, whose name is Dale Whitaker. And Dale worked for a company that was doing that stuff as the CFO. And when he determined what was going on, he actually started blowing the whistle going back to 2018. This is not new data. The fact that nobody on the political right is talking about it is shocking. And that's what brings me to 2 stories here. One from CBS News. Americans are more scared of going broke in retirement than they are of death. This is an actual life or death issue for people. Being scammed out of your retirement account and not having any money to live on is actually scarier than literally dying, which means it leads to people ending their own lives over this stuff. I guarantee that there is blood on the hands of the conservatives who were out there pumping gold products to people because they are scams. They take people's money to the tune of, let's say, 15 at the low end to 40 or 50% of your life savings in IRAs. They are getting siphoned right off the top. If you take $100,000 from your IRA and you roll it into a gold IRA, there is an immediate skim of like 40% getting paid out to the company, to the salesperson, and even to the person like the podcaster or the influencer that you listen to that sent you there. Do you know that? Because if not, you need to listen on Sunday. All right. The story coincides with that from CBS. This is from their Money piece, their Money Watch. It says that faced with inflation and taxes and concerns about the outsized or the oversized benefits of Social Security, many Americans are afraid they're going to go broke in retirement, and they are more scared of that broke experience than they are of actually dying. And the real world translation of that is it leads to people actually ending their own lives because they cannot survive. That's real. That is a known quantity. And there's some anecdotal evidence that we even bring up during the podcast for Sunday. We just taped it yesterday. It was like 4 hours of it was very intense. Okay, there's a new study from Alliance Life, which says that of 1,000 adults surveyed, age 25 and older, with incomes of $50,000 and above, so people who are making some money at 25, 50 grand's not too bad, In total, 64% of respondents across all the generations said they are more stressed about running out of funds in their golden years than even the prospect of dying. And that rate is going higher every year. This makes perfect sense. And then comes to my second story, which is going to get government involved. The second story comes from ABC News. And these were not related to each other, but I just happened to see them because I go through, like I said, I do a comb of what I think the important stories are, and I look for through lines. This is a through line to me. Seniors lost $4.8 billion to scammers in 2024. There's a reason why we have groups like Patriot Protect as one of the sponsors of the show. Again, I will not back something that I don't think is worth spending some money on, and throwing $50 or $80 or $100 into some preventative maintenance to make you a smaller target to scammers is an easy move, because $4.8 billion got taken from people who are in the age bracket of folks that listen to our podcast every day. Okay, that was 2024's data, according to who? The FBI. Seniors lost $4.8 billion due to scammers. The release of the report came out yesterday. No, it came out earlier today, it looks like. In total, the United States lost $16.6 billion in total. Fraud and scams represent a 33% increase of loss from 2023 to 2024. Personnel is policy. The hours that you dedicate are, in fact, an opportunity cost. Opportunity cost means that whatever you spend your time on, there is something that you cannot spend your time on. So if you spend your time on investigating parents at school board meetings, or if you decide that you're going to go after quote unquote radical traditionalist Catholics, or if you spend your time on going after other things, MAGA supporters and January 6ers, then you are not investigating force and fraud against the American people, and they lose $16.6 billion. The FBI costs us about $11 billion a year. There is a cost there. Get it? Real easy. It costs us something. So I'm going to go to the FBI now. Actually, I'm going to talk about my friends at Shield Arms first. And then we're going to go into the FBI because I got some videos that I think you should see. And it tells you why I'm sitting where I am right now and why I don't hawk a gold product. And I do take my credibility very seriously, and the very small and specific sponsors we have, whether it be a coffee company, whether it be an emergency food company, whether it be a company of something I've been using since I was working on duty with the FBI, I take that very seriously because there's trust in the amount of time that you spend with me. There's an opportunity cost for listening to this podcast. You could be listening to something else. So I'm appreciative that you listen to us. One of the people that I really like is my friends over at Shield Arms. I know the guys personally that are doing this. I know the owner. I met the owner of this company that you're seeing on the screen right now. It's called the 9 Reloaded. It is probably my new favorite firearms purchase. They're about $100. You get about 5% off, so not a ton of money. You can get free shipping if you spend enough money over there. Promo code KYLE will save you money on anything you buy from them outside of maybe firearms, and they change that sometimes. It is the coolest product I've ever had. I've had other mag loaders. Nothing is even close to this, so if you guys want to do that, you want to check out their soft goods, you want to check out the vests, or you want to put on something like body armor, you can have their fanny pack, which is great if you're a mom and you walk around with a stroller and kids, or if you're a grandparent and you have unruly dogs or anything else. They have a gun-toting backpack that works on neodymium magnets, so you pull them out and you open it. They're a great company. They make smart products. They're in Montana. We back them up because they back us up. They've sent me really cool equipment. I saw them at SHOT Show. They actually gave me access to SHOT. All right. So we only support companies that we think are useful. And that's one of them. So again, it's shieldarms.com. They, if you guys go to the links in the show description, very easy. The coolest thing they have, by the way, is a folding AR lower that is actually integrated. It is lighter and is more effective and is stronger. So anyway, check them out if you guys are interested. If you're a firearms person like I am, you guys know that's something I'm really interested in. I carry their magazines every day. I carry their Magwell and so on. I want to do FBI stuff a little bit. Why? How about we go to First Amendment? The ability to indoctrinate your children the way you want. The opportunity cost of our federal government doing whatever it does. If it's not investigating the bad guys, it could be investigating you, which is what we saw. Pam Bondi just did a press conference talking about how they were going after Christians, that there was a widespread sentiment in the DOJ. She's sitting next to Marco Rubio. She's sitting next to Pete Hegseth. Remember, all of these departments, all of their employees overwhelmingly demonstrate a lean and a bias towards the political left based on their political contributions and donations. So she's giving this, and then I'm going to show you why the problem continues to exist at my previous agency and the reason why the FBI and in smaller way the rest of the DOJ, but specifically like the ATF and the DEA and the Marshal Service. The reason why it matters is because those are the teeth in the attack dog of the broader federal government. The first thing that's going to bite you is an FBI search warrant or a DEA search warrant or, God forbid, an ATF search warrant. Enjoy this little Pam Bondi clip, and then we're going to show you why this is problematic and why it's not getting fixed.
Thank you all for joining us today. We're excited to be here for the launch of the Task Force to Eradicate Anti-Christian Bias as outlined in the President's Executive Order. Joining me today are members of the task force and individuals who have been impacted by the anti-Christian bias. Together, this task force will identify any unlawful anti-Christian policies, practices, or conduct across the government, seek input from the faith-based organizations and state governments to end anti-Christian bias, find and fix deficiencies in existing and regulatory practices that might contribute to the anti-Christian bias. As President Trump has stated, the Biden administration engaged in an egregious pattern of targeting peaceful Christians while ignoring violent anti-Christian offenses. The president is right. Biden's Department of Justice abused and targeted Christians. Pro-life Christians were arrested and imprisoned for peacefully praying outside abortion clinics. The FBI spied on traditional Catholics in their parishes. President Biden declared Easter Sunday to be Transgender Day of Visibility.
All right, sure. Let me take a minute for all of you that are watching. If you're watching right now, make sure you like the video. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, please make sure you hit that like before you leave. We appreciate that. Again, it's youtube.com/@KyleSeraphin, rumble.com/KyleSeraphin. Very easy to find. If you're listening on Spotify, leave a comment, please. Anything that you think of. Let me know specifically. If you go like, this guy's full of it, like which guy? Make sure you guys are real specific. I do read them all, most of them at least. KyleSeraphinShow.com is how you get there. I want to say thanks for you watching it. I want to also tell you that the reason that you guys probably heard of me between Dan Bongino and showing up on Tucker Carlson on Fox was because of the very thing that is being discussed by Pam Bondi right there. There's a guy named Stanley Meador, and Stanley is the special agent in charge of the Washington field office. I'm sorry, of the Richmond field office, which released that memo, that intelligence product saying that the FBI was going to target Catholics. Was he removed? Nope. Personnel's policy, right? The policy is he actually had this video promoted by Dan Bongino, who is now the deputy director of the FBI. It was retweeted on their social media and reshared. And they took it down, people. I did a screen grab to be able to pull this video down because this is what they are spending time on. This is the people that they are promoting. They are literally taking the people that Pam Bondi, the boss of DOJ, is talking about, who were problematic, who did not solve the problems inside that government. And they're saying, no harm, no foul, let's move on. This is unacceptable. It's the same problem as not looking into scammers that go after people who are seniors and lose their retirement. By the way, if you lose less than $1 million, the DOJ is most likely not interested in your scam. I've brought $50,000 cases. I've heard of people being $500,000 cases. And depending on the area you live, you could bring a $1 million fraud to the DOJ and they will not pick it up and prosecute. But they did go after Catholics. They did introduce sources into a church. And this is the guy who signed off on. He's the final approving authority in the Richmond field office for the FBI, and he's being promoted and being boosted by Dan Bongino, who is now the number 2. A guy who told us he was going to get rid of everything. Yes, I have the receipts for that too.
A 12-year-old bribed with Xbox gift cards, threatened into silence. This is what predators are doing to our kids, and it's happening right here in Virginia. When we received intel about a man coercing minors through Snapchat, FBI Richmond's Child Exploitation Task Force acted immediately. What we uncovered was horrifying. Multiple young boys, ages 10 to 16, manipulated, exploited, victimized.
Blah, 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 blah. This guy is out there reading off a script poorly. You can actually see the teleprompter. I'll put this up over on our locals channel, KyleSeraphin.com, if you guys want to see it. Because I screen grabbed it because they pulled it from the internet. Because it's embarrassing. All right, I will show you the rest of it. It's just not that interesting. He's talking about how people are getting extorted. The FBI doesn't care about that until somebody actually dies or unless there's some social media buzz, and that's why they put it up. But they didn't realize that they were going after showing Stanley do it, and Stanley is a problem. He's the same guy that was standing behind Cash Patel when he was saying, let good cops be cops. Is what happens is that we get the top 10, 3 of the top 10. Remember, we showed you 3 of the top 10. What was the story? 2 of them were picked up by local cops. 1 of them was being negotiated for by the Biden administration before Cash ever got in. Whatever happened to this? You guys want to know why I sit behind a microphone? I'm going to keep showing you. This is just a little taste. But there was a guy that a lot of us listen to. He's now sitting at the FBI. And what is he doing? This is why I sit here. I got invited to sit here.
This is an agency that has betrayed you and that oath you took. And to this man or woman who stepped forward and disclosed this horrific information about the FBI targeting a legitimate conservative journalist, I applaud you. Today, another whistleblower has come forward. I applaud you as well, sir, ma'am, from the FBI, who came forward with this data. Folks, we are starting to see it. People are starting to take their constitutional oath seriously. Fox News, FBI whistleblower. The FBI targeted parents via terrorism tools, despite Merrick Garland, our attorney general's testimony that didn't happen. To the FBI agent, male or female, I don't know who you are, who spoke to Kerry. I know, I get it. You want to remain anonymous. I understand. It's not a knock. But your country's on the line here. I'd rather you be anonymous and not exist at all, and not do what you're doing. And I appreciate it. You have my respect and gratitude. But it'd be really powerful if you'd come out and speak. My podcast, my radio show, and my television show are available to you. I'm saying that in front of this entire audience so everybody understands. If you need a vehicle to speak, this microphone, and I'll show you this for my Fox crew. It's my Fox microphone that goes on my lapel. Those are here for you, all of them. You have my word. We'll get you the protection of the microphone.
Okay, sure. So I showed up. This is the protection of my microphone now. We had to do it ourselves because Dan ran off on us, said we were dead to him. I will play you the entire clip at the end of the show after the outro reel so you guys can know when to tune it off if you don't want to see it. I'll also show you what I'm calling the bona fides reel, which are all the hits that we did that used to be in our opening intro. We used to do a much longer intro. I just want to get right into the show now, but I do have it, and I want to show you. Here's my problem. Dan talked a big game for a long time, and I'm glad he did because he was right. But that's not happening right now. And as I told you yesterday, that could have been enacted before he was even put into place. It should have been done before Pam Bondi was even sworn in. They got a deputy attorney general and a transition team over at DOJ that could have started the work because we wrote up the blueprint from day 0. From before the time that Cash Patel was even nominated, we had pitched the ideas of what you needed to do. I thought we were getting rid of the people that were a problem, and Stanley should have been one of them right away. Spencer Evans should have been one of them right away. He's the one who denied all the religious accommodation. Again, these people, they're playing for keeps, and they'll just sit away and hide like a tick in the hair where they can't be seen, and they'll just wait until it's time, and they will drop whatever poison is going to be in there. The FBI is not cleansed simply because you put 2 new guys at the top.
They were going to back down. You're wrong. You're wrong. The only thing that is going to stop the FBI from doing what they're doing now, which has become full-time activists and bouncers, and in many cases thugs for the Democrat Party, is imposing real material losses on them. Fire everyone involved in this stuff. Everyone, no excuses. Disband the entity. It is the only way at this point.
You heard him. What's the only way? Disband the entity. Stop all the things. Did he say it once? No, he said it dozens of times. For those of you who were listening, it's very simple. You knew what the story was. That's why you had expectations. They're not being realized. They could have been accomplished in the first 30 days. Do you know how long it took for them to get rid of Garrett O'Boyle? A few seconds. It took 30 days tops for them to get rid of me. And what they had to do first was they had to close the investigation that I alleged needed to be done into my boss for violating and abusing his authority. They opened an investigation to me on April the 15th. And by April the 18th, 3 days later, I was removed with my badge and a gun. It took a couple days to get rid of my paycheck. You can walk somebody out from Friday to Monday. How do I know that? Because in 2022, On April the 15th, unbeknownst to me, the FBI opened up an investigation into me because of the things that I was bringing forward, like this. Are you guys ready? This, the story of talking to these about how the FBI was abusing the parents at school board's threat tag, how they were abusing the white supremacy tag. The opportunity cost was being wasted there. I went to my member of Congress in October of 21. On April 15th of 2022, they opened an investigation into me for talking to a cop for 3.5 minutes in the desert that didn't even result in a police report.
They know, the FBI whistleblowers, that the demand for white supremacy coming from FBI headquarters vastly outstrips the supply of white supremacy, said one agent. Thank you to this guy or woman who spoke on the condition of anonymity. We have more people assigned to investigate white supremacists than we can actually find. Can I just put a quick note out?
Can I just put a quick note out that every single one of those whistleblowers that was being described was the same guy, and he's sitting right here in front of this microphone right now. And he gave free information. Got phone calls from Kash Patel personally before he was sworn in. You got 5 minutes with Trump. What would you do? Hey, I need the names of people that are honorable that you would leave your kids with that work for the FBI. No problem. You want 4, I'll give you 8. You need 3 bullet points, I'll give you 5. Why? Because you can pick and choose the ones you like. I gave the plan freely, openly, as much as it was. Every time there was a phone call, I made it. I either answered it right away to the inconvenience of my family, or we made an immediate call back, which is why we got phone calls when Kash Patel was nominated. You guys made this happen. A phone call that night. Same story from Dan, by the way. They made a whole movie about some of the stuff we were doing, which we advised on, which we helped script. I sat and talked to Des D'Souza for 2 hours before they did that movie. And I said, here's the actual storyline that you guys should be talking about. And they were like, that's really good. That shapes it up really well. Because it is a broader story. And it's been going on for several decades. And it did take a U-turn or a left turn hard when Obama came in. What did Dan say about this? What do we do? How do you fix the problem? Did he understand it? It sounded like he did. Why? Because he did this after he was nominated.
It is time for total personnel warfare. Do you understand that? Everybody has to go. Anyone in the justice system, a United States attorney, an AUSA, an assistant United States attorney, that's what we call them in the system. The intake AUSA, who decides, anyone who sniffed this case, touched this case, tweeted positively about this case, it is the president's full and final discretion to keep you hired in the DOJ. Pam Bondi, soon to be President Trump, soon to be Attorney General. Everybody's got to go. It is time for, say it with me, folks, throw it in the chat right now, total personnel warfare.
Total personnel warfare. Do any of you have any confusion about what he said? Those are his words. They come from a video from his own podcast where nobody was coercing him before anybody came in and weighed in on what he could do or what he could say. So where are they? I'm not the only one, by the way. I'm not the only one who's irritated with this stuff. You got questions? You should be asking that guy questions. Total personnel warfare. Where's the pipe bomber? Where's the Epstein prosecutions? They've had those cases for literally years. I know for a fact that they are capable of doing that investigation. There is zero reason, that you wouldn't be able to find out who the pipe bomber is in a couple of days. He's been there a month. That's far too long. You bring on the agent who was working the case, not some a-hole like Steve Jensen, who was out there prosecuting MAGA guys and going after J6ers. You bring in somebody who actually knew what was going on, the actual GS-13 case agents. And total personnel warfare. Anybody who was moving against it, anybody who was trying to stop it, anybody who was prosecuting or persecuting Christians of any variety or any ethnic group in violation of the First Amendment should be gone. The default position is you're suspended. It should be like the Glengarry Glen Ross. I brought that up in our podcast on Sunday, the one that's coming up. Glengarry Glen Ross. It's Alec Baldwin. He walks in, he's carrying the brass balls, right? It's one of the most famous speeches in all of sales. If you've ever seen it, it's fantastic. And he rose in and he says something real simple. He goes, the good news is you're fired. The bad news is you've got 1 week. 1 week, starting with tonight, to get your job back. That should be the default position. The FBI as an agency was found wanting because I am one of the few people who ever came forward. And the other ones have their own podcast on the American Radicals. You guys can find them too. And there's a couple of guys whose names you don't know. There's Marcus Allen, who's pretty quiet. He's in a good conservative Catholic. And he's just doing that. Most people shut their mouth, took the paycheck, and they are the problem. And they are still working there. They all have their jobs. They all have their security clearances. Not one of them was walked out after a 3-day investigation. By the way, that was over Easter Sunday. It was Friday, April the 15th. And then over the weekend, my wife was baptized. I walked in after giving a 2-hour interview to a investigator inside the FBI who was going like, oh my God, you've been retaliated against 14 times since you came forward to Congress. That seems truly problematic. And they took the badge and the gun right there and rolled out. Personnel is policy. I'm not the only one, people. Here's Glenn Beck and Steve Bannon, both talking about the same problem. Where is the movement forward? Actions count. The do matters in Dan Bongino speak, does it not?
It's the one thing they are furious about.
I'm pissed.
And Pam and Cash are as good as you get. What's the problem? Your audience the same way, they're steamed.
Oh, yeah. You can do an awful lot of stuff, but until you start putting bad guys in jail, I don't believe you. I don't believe you.
And you know a sense of urgency. It's not like we have this forever.
No.
I mean, if Hakeem Jeffries wins in 18 months, which is not outside the possibility to raise $2 billion,
we're done.
They're going to impeach Trump right
We're
about.
done. So where is the DOJ? Okay, I know Cash quite well. I believe Cash. I don't know Pam. Okay, that I'm not throwing dispersions on her, but something's not right. Why aren't you unleashing? Is it the deep state has them by the throat? What is it? But it's got to be solved. You have no.
Is that a message that you think I don't want to get into your private conversation with the president, but is that something you would highlight? That?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You think there needs to be a sense of urgency about this?
What does any of it mean?
Why is Congress taking so much time off right now? Traditional 2 weeks of vacations or 2 weeks back to the constituency where they don't have town halls?
I don't know. I mean, it is.
Because collectively they're good people, but as a body,
they're horrible.
They're horrible.
Absolutely horrible. I honestly, Steve, I can't tell you. I am at a loss for DOJ, and I'm at a loss for Congress, and I'm at a loss on Donald Trump. Man, why aren't you using the bully pulpit to go after your own here?
It's so simple. I'm not speaking out of turn here, folks. I'm not speaking from a position of not understanding how it works. In 3 days, you could have people suspended. I laid it out yesterday if you guys want to understand. I don't need to see the arrests right away. What I want to see are people who were inside that were problematic removed from the system. And I don't want to see Dan Bongino or Kash Patel out there promoting these clowns in some ridiculous way. Actually, I'm going to show you a quick story that popped up. I thought this was funny. Again, the leftist media, terrible about stuff. Now they're going to take a punch, but they're right in this one. Sometimes the left is correct. This is CBS. Kash Patel once called for ending the FBI director's government jet use. Now he won't reveal if he's a frequent flyer. You know what? This story is freaking silly. CBS, give me a call. I'll give you the first one for free. He's flying right now. There's the jet. It's inbound. It's airborne. I grabbed it before we got started today, folks. Here's where it is. It left at 7:55 a.m., 07:55 a.m. Eastern time. This is not hard to follow. Multiple reporters know the tail number. The tail number is America's property. It is November 708, Juliet Hotel, like J. Edgar Hoover. And he's been flying places. He's been going to CGIS. He's been rolling out, doing the things, hanging out and having fun. He's been flying up and doing photo ops. I'm going to try to add this on the fly right now, so bear with me because I don't like doing this on the fly, but it needs to be done. He actually went up to CGIS. CGIS is the criminal justice, whatever it is. I can't remember. They do background checks for guns and things like that. He went up to CGIS to go see what was going on up there. He dressed like freaking Zelensky, folks. I'm not exaggerating when I say that. It's disturbing. He met with a U.S. congressman. Sorry, he was a senator. It's Jim Justice, who's the big fat guy from West Virginia. Okay. He went up there. I'm adding the scene right now so I can show you. This is the boardroom table that they took. In the background, what you can see is a photo. There's a picture of a woman, and that woman's name is Trudy Ford. And according to whistleblowers identified by Empower Oversight, that woman was caught in stages of undress while having sexual intercourse or sexual contact with the former assistant director. Allegedly, that's what was going on in the building, according to whistleblowers, okay? In the building and caught by colleagues. The former assistant director, a guy named Michael Christman. And she's sitting at the table with Kash Patel. And Garrett O'Boyle is tucking in his kids at night with no job, coming into his 32nd month of suspension. You could remove all of these a-holes. Instead, she's at the table, hanging out with a freaking sitting U.S. senator. Is that acceptable to us? Is that okay? And her face, by the way, I'm not doxing anybody here. I'm not sharing any information. They got no problem showing who this lady is. I'm going to show you real quickly who she is because she did PR videos for CGIS talking about NTalk. NTalk, by the way, folks, which should also be evaluated and rehauled. And we have whistleblowers from inside there who could help. NTalk is a cesspool of leftism. And they are the people that fielded all the calls on January 6th and forwarded them on to the field agents. So if you want to know where to start, it's a good place. Here's a little promo video that CGIS did about themselves. And again, this woman, Trudy Ford's in there.
The role of the National Threat Operations Center is to act as a central intake for all telephone and electronic tips from the public to the FBI. So the field offices can action that information.
We're the front line, we're the voice of the FBI. We get calls from everyone across the world, whether that be from outside the United States, inside the United States, for reporting anything that they think might be FBI related. So it feels really good to know that we are such a large part of the organization and just having such an important mission, unique but important mission to the FBI.
We have changed quite a bit through our processes, our technology, as well as our staffing. We recognize the need to go from a call center to a full-fledged operations center, and with that came additional infrastructure, resources, and protocols.
Also known as your money, taxpayer dollars. That's the lady. She's sitting at the end of the table on the screen right now. If you guys want to tune in, it's right at the hour mark. You can see who she is. She's on her own. She's pointed out in the video. She was the assistant section chief at the time. Now I'm told she's the number 2 there. After being caught in a sexual tryst by her own co-workers, like her co-workers saw her. Do you know how much sexual malfeasance goes on in FBI senior leadership? I can give like about a dozen examples off the top of my head, and I've done it, and every time I do, people have their minds blown. These people are compromised. They continue to compromise themselves. That is a national security threat. These guys could get rid of them. They're not doing it. I'm not going to stop with it. I'm just saying. All right, that's what we got for today. Should we do something fun? Should we at least have like at least one little funny thing? I will give you a palate cleanse. I left it off yesterday. Again, if you're following the show and you're watching it live, we appreciate you over on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you are subscribed to the channel over there. Share it with a friend. That'd be great. Same thing for those on YouTube. We are growing every single month over there for the first time ever, and it's awesome. YouTube.com/@Kyle Seraphin. It's the only place you can catch the show in 4K. If you want to join the locals channel and be part of our locals chat, you also get the show on Sunday, earlier on Saturday. It's KyleSeraphin.com. And then lastly, Spotify, where we get the best info, but also you can watch either audio or video. You can take it in your pocket and on your phone. KyleSeraphinShow.com will take you right to it. We really appreciate you guys checking that out. I will give you a palate cleanse. I would be remiss after all this. How about something about conspiracy theorists? I think many of you can relate to this. It's funny. This is from the one of the Kill Tony stand-ups.
I'm a conspiracy theorist. Anybody else in here like the truth? I don't trust the government for shit. I don't care what they tell me. They're like, hey, you should drink 8 glasses of water a day. I'm like, why? What's in the water? Is this why everybody's gay? Because I'm not having it. You understand? Some of you guys are like, but I'm gay. Stop drinking the tap water. What do you want me to tell you?
Alex Jones was right. Yeah, that's just how it works. All right, folks, thanks so much for joining me today. We didn't even talk about the Pope. I just moved past it because I got more excited about other things. They're holding the body in state, and the funeral's looking real weird for those of you who haven't experienced it. I'll show you some videos tomorrow on that. No big deal. It's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere either. Let me just show you why I thought that was kind of interesting in all of that. Let me just throw this up here real quick because I got attacked by somebody. Like, they were really upset. The Pope, I would say good riddance. Like, pray for the repose of his soul, but also the church needs real leadership that is not hard political left, homosexuality not be a crime, the Pope rebuking Donald Trump for deportation of quote-unquote migrants. These are all NPR stories. When NPR loves you, you're a problem. For Catholics, for conservatives, for Christians generally, you're not going to be a very solid faith leader on that. COVID vaccinations are a moral obligation. That's why the conspiracy theory is so good. That's why people are looking out there saying, stop drinking the tap water, and that becomes a funny joke at a stand-up. That's where we're at. Anyhow, more of that tomorrow. No big deal. We're going to run right into the intro. And if you guys listen after the outro, I will play you the sort of bona fides reel, the story of why I thought it was important, why I actually came forward in the first place, what the result was. I haven't changed my tune. I never have, and I won't. I'm going to keep staying with it. So God bless you. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to the Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.
Are you familiar with FBI Special Agent Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name. I'm familiar with the name.
Former FBI agent Kyle Seraphin, who recently received a letter from the FBI saying, be quiet about this. Kyle, welcome to the show. You're not following orders.
So, Kyle, you had some issues that brought you here as a whistleblower. Joining me now to discuss is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Kyle, thanks for spending some time with us again. Joining me now is FBI whistleblower Kyle Seraphin. Joining me now is a frequent guest of the show, former FBI special agent whistleblower as well, Kyle Seraphin.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Right, we're lucky to have him with us today. He's Kyle Seraphin, a real whistleblower himself.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public, and we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Why did you decide to become a whistleblower?
I just made a decision that this is America's information, it's not mine, and I'm not going to let the FBI steamroll me and my family.
Kyle Seraphin, he's a former FBI agent. He's the host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast, and he joins us on the phone. Hello, Kyle. Great to have you back with us, sir.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Kyle Seraphin.
Let's turn it over to two former FBI special agents turned whistleblowers who are holding the Bureau accountable, Steve Friend and Kyle Seraphin.
A brave FBI whistleblower who is a friend of our show, also Dan Bongino's. Kyle Seraphin. He's the host of something that strangely is called The Kyle Seraphin Show. Follow him on Twitter. I'm Sebastian Gorka. I'll call you later. We'll talk guns. We'll talk optics.
All right. Any update on your whistleblower situation?
No, I expect to be attacked for the foreseeable future.
Okay. At least you're realistic. Thanks so much, Kyle.
All right, Kyle Seraphin, former FBI agent, also host of the Kyle Seraphin podcast. Thanks as always, Kyle. Good to talk to you today, sir.
Perfect, man. God bless you, brother. Thank you for standing up for the truth, man. Thank you for coming on.
Steve, Kyle, you guys are great Americans, and it's an honor to have you on the program. Have a great weekend.
And follow him, Kyle Seraphin, with a PH on Twitter. God bless you, Kyle.
So, Kyle, thank you so much for joining us. Great chatting with you.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart,